It has been 25 years since Chuck Schumer entered the U.S. Senate. He's now the longest-serving senator in New York history and the only New Yorker to ever become Senate Majority Leader, a role that would end if Republicans win enough Senate seats in next month's election to take control. This week, we are looking at how Schumer has wielded power and his impact on our state and our nation. Kevin Fry has more in part one of this three-part series.
It was early September, and Senator Chuck Schumer was in upstate New York, just outside of Elmira, for a big announcement.
Thank you so much.
The giant multinational company Siemens unveiled plans for a first-of-its-kind high-speed rail production plant in the U.S., bringing hundreds of jobs to the rural New York town of Horseheads. The decision aided by the bipartisan infrastructure law that Schumer had ushered through the Senate.
We are going to be the center of railcar and high-speed railcar manufacturing in the whole country.
A short time later, Schumer rushed back to Washington for the swearing in of a new senator from New Jersey. This is Schumer's juggling act, balancing the business of Senate Majority Leader with the pedestrian rituals of a local politician. Even as he has risen to the pinnacle of power, he still visits each of New York's 62 counties every year, continuing a tradition he began when first entering the Senate.
If you had asked me, is Schumer a workaholic? I'd say no, he's not a workaholic. He works harder than most workaholics.
That relentlessness has been a hallmark of Schumer's political career, and a major reason for its durability. We sat down with him at the Corning Museum of Glass, right after that high-speed rail announcement.
If anything, I've been persistent in just about everything I've done, and what I have found is usually it pays off.
Schumer was born in Brooklyn, the son of an exterminator and a homemaker. Fresh out of Harvard Law School, he was elected to the New York State Assembly at 23, the youngest person to do that since Teddy Roosevelt. He moved on to Congress, winning notice for passing legislation like the Brady Bill, which required background checks for most gun purchases.
We are all frightened for our children. We're disgusted by this orgy of handgun slaughter.
And after Republicans took control of the House in 1995, sending Democrats to the minority, a frustrated Schumer set his sights higher.
I have been majority Senate, majority House, minority House. Only one really sucks. So I left the House to go to the Senate.
But to get there, he'd have to defeat two New York institutions.
No matter what next week brings.
First, former Democratic Congresswoman Geraldine Ferraro. Schumer defeated her in a three-way Democratic primary. And then the incumbent senator, three-term Republican Alphonse D'Amato.
I'm going to continue to work and fight for the people of this state.
Known as Senator Pothole because of his work on constituent services.
Would have been easier to run against anybody. Chuck Schumer works as hard, if not harder than anybody. He's bright, he's articulate.
To counter D'Amato, Schumer deployed what would soon become a staple of his politics, talking consumer and kitchen table issues aimed at appealing to a hypothetical middle-class family he dubbed the Baileys.
They want to be taken seriously. They are not that partisan. They want to make sure you care about what they care about, show them some respect, and realize that they just want a better life for themselves and their kids.
Schumer campaigned as a centrist Democrat and relentlessly stumped upstate, betting he could narrow the Republicans' advantage in their traditional stronghold. The strategy worked, redefining how a Democrat could win in the state. Schumer won with nearly 55% of the vote.
We're going to cross the finish line ahead of Al D'Amato.
In the Senate, Democratic leader Harry Reid of Nevada became one of Schumer's mentors. Ahead of the 2006 election, Reid named Schumer chair of the Senate Democrats' campaign arm. Schumer stayed on for the 2008 election, too. Democrats gained seats in both campaign cycles.
Harry Reid recognized Chuck's skill and Chuck's uncanny ability to communicate otherwise arcane policy into sort of common sense, meat and potatoes messaging that people understood and could connect with.
An uncanny ability to communicate, coupled with a driving ambition that's played out in different ways.
They're rampant in the high schools.
As he worked his way up the political ladder in New York, Schumer routinely scheduled news conferences, often focused on consumer issues, for every Sunday, sensing correctly that media outlets were starved for stories on a normally slow news day. On Capitol Hill, Senator Bob Dole first uttered what would become a cliche, that the most dangerous place in Washington is between Schumer and a camera. Former aides say Schumer could be demanding and hard-charging, but also willing to hear out their ideas. And funny, even quirky.
I've been told your song of choice is It's Raining Men. Can you please explain why?
I just love the song. But we have a little party every year. We call it Christmas in Schumerland. And I have led the staff dancing around with turning the umbrellas upside down. That's the lyrics of the song. To the song. It's a tradition.
Retired California Senator Barbara Boxer worked alongside Schumer for nearly 2 decades.
Chuck is one of the smartest people I know. He's very, very bright. It's disarming because he's also very funny and he's self-deprecating, and he just, it takes a while to get him because of all that.
The alumni network of former Schumer aides is large, stretching to many corners of Washington and beyond.
He's the only man that crashed my bridal shower. In Brooklyn, he rode his bike over.
By 2017, when Reid retired, Schumer's Democratic colleagues had elected him as their new leader. And in 2021, after Democrats picked up a few more Senate seats, he ascended to the job he long sought, Majority Leader, the first New Yorker and the first Jewish person to hold the position.
If you were to ask someone about Chuck Schumer in 1998, they would probably describe to you ambitious, sharp-elbowed New Yorker, really working his way to be noticed, be seen, centered on himself. I think if you asked anyone about who Chuck Schumer is today, they would tell you that he is the same level of energy around accomplishment, but with a much more sophisticated and accomplished worldview around the way you get that done.
With the new job came new power he'd wield to pass big national legislation that would touch communities back home.
Our Kevin Fry joins us now with more. And Kevin, what is the senator's sense of how this season is going to go for him? I know that Democrats are trying to hang on to their very slim majority right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've got tough races, particularly in Ohio and Montana, that they're trying to hold on to. One of those goes the other way, goes to Republicans. They're out of control of the Senate, although they are keeping their eye on some other potential opportunities, be that Florida, Texas, as potential backup plans. Overall, Schumer, this interview was a month ago, I should stress, expressed his usual flair for optimism about how the Democrats are going to fare in this election, but he certainly must acknowledge that they are also facing some stiff headwinds.
Yeah, say a little bit more about what I always thought of his trademark is just showing up. I mean, I live not far from him in Brooklyn, and you will see this guy out on his bike, showing up at block parties, crashing other people's, family reunions and otherwise, just inserting himself into the life of the community.
Yeah, I mean, he's everywhere, essentially, and that's kind of the ubiquity of him, that he makes this statewide tour, which I should, as a little bit of a teaser, say we're going to get a little more deeply into coming up tomorrow. But he's really present for everything, talking about all of these kind of very niche items, be it the future of e-cigarettes, be it airline fees and the size of airline seats, talking about these various issues that maybe don't really lend themselves to the grandeur of Senate Majority Leader, but he tries to use his power to kind of move the needle a bit on these and also appeal to regular voters who might say, oh, that's an interesting idea, and then also see him coming around the corner on his bike at the same time.
Right. We often do see him taking care of national issues as the spokesman for the majority conference in the Senate, but he still pays a lot of attention to New York issues at the same time, right?
Not necessarily the politics themselves. He's not necessarily going to be the power broker within the Democratic establishment. More on that tomorrow. But he certainly is very focused on deliverables for New York. Talk to any of his aides or allies, and they'll stress that's really part of the Schumer mantra.
All right. Thanks very much, Kevin.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. For more stories in your communities, click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV for the latest news and weather updates every 10 minutes and more. We'll see you then.